and I did a Pecha Kucha as well there. I believe it was in 2012. And I had such a great time in Japan. I stayed about 2 weeks and got to travel to the fish market and have the morning sushi breakfast. And so it was really, really incredible and awesome to be there. So now I am based currently in a very popular city in the United States towards the south. And can anyone guess by the picture behind me what city that might be? Or maybe you've traveled there or seen this place. So I will give you a hint. I will at least give you a hint. It's in Texas. Okay. So it's a very famous city in Texas. And this is one of the famous landmarks. Oh, yes, Victoria is the winner of some virtual chocolate. Or in this case, a virtual taco from San Antonio. So this is a famous San Antonio Riverwalk, and this is where I'm currently located for the last 2 years. So I did grow. I am originally from San Antonio. I grew up here, but lived many different places, including Greece, Germany, and other parts of Texas as well. Oh, I'm glad to hear some of you have been there and you love it as much as I do. They always say there's no place like home, and after so many countries, I actually really do love it here. People are so nice and kind, just like they were in Japan when I went there. So I'm going to go ahead and start the screen sharing. If you are a beginner at using AI, I'm going to go over like what AI is and different terms as well. So don't feel like you have to be like an expert or even like an ed tech expert. And I'll want to really also be able to make you feel comfortable with just kind of knowing why it's important. And whenever your students ask about it or curious about using AI, especially in college and university, some of them are already using it. What are some best practices and ways to get students to use it? And really the focus on this one is to improve their writing. Okay, so there's some other presenters that say some really great things about AI and how to use it for speaking and other things, but mine is mostly going to focus on reading and writing. And so, and I will use some examples of student writing and creation from the age of like 5 years old, even all the way to university level students as well. You can find the presentation details and the resources at shellyterrell.com/AIEFL. So you can find them there. AI, it's just a tool like any other tool. So just like we were super excited back in 96 when the World Wide Web was just given away, like we could access it. And then with mobile devices, with iPads, we always get this kind of technology that when it becomes available to people all over the world, all of a sudden it's very exciting. And of course, it's going to impact our schools, whiteboards, and then there's so many examples of tools doing that. So AI is just another tool. It's another technology that is impacting education and student learning worldwide. But always what's important is the pedagogy, is the way that we the good practices, the best practices that we use in effective ways. And we know our practice. We know like having students use the tool to be able to create, to be able to write very authentically, having a choice, getting those supports. All of that is still important when we are employing AI. And just like with any other technology, when we had access to the World Wide Web, there are some very scary things, or some things like, wow, that's now available to learners. How can we get it to where we can really help learners to be able to use it in ways that protect them? And that's super important. And so I will cover that as well. Basically, in this presentation, we're going to go over some basic AI terms, what we're talking about, what we mean by artificial intelligence, and the kind of artificial intelligence. So Artificial intelligence has actually been since the 1950s and maybe even before being developed. It was developed by governments, military, all over the world. I think recently I heard Margaret Mead, and they had a whole special group, and that group went in, and then I think it was 1954, and really tried to use AI or artificial intelligence and develop it and do all these cool experiments and stuff with it. So it's been around for a long time. But the difference is now we have access to generative AI, specifically ChatGPT. So you hear that a lot, but that is not the only tool. There's so many cool, awesome ways that we can use it, and have students use it as well to improve their writing, their reading, their speaking, and their listening. We're going to see ways that it supports teachers, how to make your job so much easier, like be able to plan and handle all the things that now are part of teaching that can be very overwhelming. So that way you can have more time to engage with your students and be there for them and help and support them. AI tools and resources I recommend that I think are safe. We're going to talk about something called prompt engineering. That's really important. That is the key to any kind of creation with AI. The concerns and ethics, and then your role in all of this. So I want to go by looking at the chat really quick. What do you know about AI? Well, what do you know about artificial intelligence? Anything you've heard, it could be news, it could be terms that are associated with it that you've heard, it could be maybe certain things that are happening in the government, policies, or maybe it's just that some of the definitions, or you've seen some things that you can create with AI. And so, with that in mind, I want to see some of the ways that what you already know about it. You could even put at this time, any concerns or anything you might have with AI. And I know, especially for university instructors, I know one of the big things, and the first thing that came out was probably cheating with AI. So I know that's a big concern. We will see ways that we can kind of make sure that our students are using it in good ways. But yeah, definitely that might be something that and you can just write that in the chat box and let me know kind of what you already know about AI, and we can kind of learn. If you have any links or anything like that, that's you can share that as well. So I see yes to improve grammar. That's awesome. That's really great. And one of the tools that I will recommend, but we won't see today, is Grammarly. Grammarly, some of your favorite tools actually do have AI. So that's really cool as well. And they're doing so. It's great because some of the tools that our students already know, it's not like we have to introduce a new tool. We can, and I will show you ways to do that. But some of the tools that we love, like Grammarly, have AI to really help students as well. I see some other ideas. I see a concern. I really like that. Yeah, because and that's some of the things. Usually when I talk to teachers, I hear a lot of concerns, and it is something that's very powerful. So we should always think about the concerns with that too. That sometimes there's something called hallucinations. I love that. That means Jesse, you know a lot about AI, because these hallucinations. So that is an issue with some of the things we're going to see is that sometimes we ask, students may ask about research, and it could imagine research. Like it just pulls names off the internet. And when you inspect it, you realize like, oh, that's not a real person, Dr. Kelly Schwartz or something. That's not a real person. Instead, when you investigate, you might see like it came up with a research article, and there was maybe a Dr. Kelly in another research, and Alfred Schwartz in another or something, and he just made it up. So yeah, there definitely can be that hallucination. Oh, I see some follow recommendations. That's awesome. And some other ideas like instead of banning, we should get students to use it. And I believe the same thing too. If we would have banned the use of the internet, a lot of schools also tried banning the use of mobile devices, and now students are going to use them anyway. And now it becomes an issue because we never taught them how to use it well. So when we talk about AI, really what we mean now since AI has been in existence for a long time, is we're specifically talking about generative AI. So that's what we're going to focus on here, generative AI and those kind of tools. Um, we might hear about bias. We heard the word hallucinations in the chat. We see machine learning, and that was like one of the first stages of AI. I used to teach elementary students. I've taught all over, and every age, even 2 year olds, all the way I say to like 105. I think was my oldest student. So, and so one of the things I taught was for 4 years, I was a technology integration coding STEM teacher. And so I taught students machine learning. And so that's where AI gets its data from. So you may have heard that AI, artificial intelligence, we have fed it data. That's why it's so smart. That's why it can generate things, because for years it's been fed data. Deep fakes. So there's a lot of fake things out there. Recently in the United States, we have an election coming up, and there was actually AI was used to make a voice of Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was on the phone calling people. They're investigating this right now, but calling to say don't vote in the primaries, and he was completely made by AI. So there are a lot of deep fakes out there, and then prompt engineering. One of the best definitions I like is by someone on LinkedIn I follow, and a lot of the information and the great practices that I get are from LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I follow a bunch of gurus and people that just use AI, even teachers, professors, and I just see all the things they do. And this is all over the world. And so I find like LinkedIn is a great source if you want to keep seeing great ideas. And there is a strong English language teaching community there. So they share a lot about AI as well. And so he gives a really great definition about generative AI, but I want you to focus on the idea of generative, and basically it creates content. So this type of artificial intelligence, any of these generative AI tools, what you do is you give it instructions. We call that a prompt. And that prompt, and it's called prompt engineering, you giving it instructions, typing in those instructions or telling it what you want to produce or what you want to come out of it. And what this does is that it creates that content. Now, this content can now be slides, it could be presentations, it's beyond essays, it could be objectives, it could be a lesson plan, it could be video. I mean, it's just an avatar, a bot, a game. You can actually get it to generate code for a game. So it can create so much content by you just typing in, this is what I want. Okay. Of course, that writing of instructions is super important. And you really have to get students to revise those instructions or those prompts. And that's what makes it a very powerful, incredible tool to use. So I got this definition from this poster, and all of this you can find. So we're going to go over a lot, but don't worry, I share a lot of information so you have it. We may not cover it all, but you're going to have the link to the webinar recording, but also to the place where you can go review these slides and then investigate what is best for you. So it's sort of like my presentations are like a buffet. You go to a buffet, you're going to see like all this great yummy food, and if you get your plate and you stack it up, you're going to get a tummy ache. You're not going to feel great. So I always say, think about your learners, think about what you're doing now, and think of like maybe select 1 or 2, 3 items on your plate, and then stick with that, investigate that. You can always come back for more much later, so that way you don't get a big headache and stuff like that. Okay. It's not too overwhelming. So feed yourself well here today. So he gives this great poster. I think it's a great one to kind of start you off. It gives that great definition. And so I provided even his LinkedIn post so you could follow him, because he does share a lot of really great visuals. And I love visuals. That's how I learn really well. And so what do we mean by generating content? So I'm going to show you a quick example before we dive into the can and the best practices and all of that. My daughter, I used her, she just turned 7. But when she was 5, I had her use this type of tool and some other 5-year-olds. And what they did was just to kind of show you the power of AI. You can even use this if you teach young learners, you can use this as well. And of course, I wrote a follow-up writing activity for you as well. So this is called Sketch Meta Lab, okay? And there's a link of all of, they're providing the links in the chat for you as well. And basically, you can use it on the phone as well. Whatever drawing that someone makes, they just upload it and then they choose different movements. They can choose jump, they can use dance, they can choose, and it takes the AI, the artificial intelligence, will take that drawing, it locates like it's able to identify like different joints in our and make that drawing come to life. It is super cool. So of course, every 5-year-old I've had or young person to do this loves it. And so I'll show you what Savannah's looks like. You're going to see a lot of examples of Savannah's work in here as well. And so that was her drawing. And then she got it to dance. It even does like the floss, I think, and some other popular movements as well. And you can share it with people and things like that. So that's very simple, easy. Like you can see there, you don't even need any prompts. On this one, you just upload a picture, but the AI has been taught how to identify what are legs, how to identify what are arms. And because it has been taught that, it can take any picture now and it can identify arms, legs, face, head, all that, the body parts, and it can get it to move in a certain way. It's also been taught what jumping looks like, what the floss dance looks like, what running looks like. And so that is one way that we can see it's very smart. For language learners, it is a great tutor to have on the side. So if you're teaching different levels, which now it seems in every class it's mixed abilities, even though we test and everything like that, it just, and especially if you're not teaching at a language school, when you're at a language school, it's a little bit more, you get the correct kind of levels and stuff. But even then you get, high ones and low ones. But with in general, you can have whole classes and have beginners and then very advanced at sometimes. So it helps with if students know how to use it, they can use it as a personal tutor, how to get more practice with whatever they need, whether it's speaking. So it can be their language partner as well. It can be discussion and writing partner. It can help with research, but yeah, you have to be aware of some of the students always have to check the work because sometimes it will come up with things. Just make believe them. It's a great visualizer. So I'm going to show you a lot of image creation tools and ways that students, if they don't understand something, like a lot of the books we read throughout history, we're going to use Shakespeare as an example. Not all of us have traveled to Verona, Italy, but with image, they can imagine anywhere of any book they read. So that's really powerful as well. Or let's say you're doing a role play and they're flying somewhere. Well, they can actually, generate a picture of two people in a plane talking and what they look like. So it's a great way to visualize content and be able to see culture and things like that. Although some of that can be biased as well. It's a great editor. It can edit their work and also something to note about this. When you do have essays and anything that says it can it can detect AI if it was written in an essay, that is something that we really discourage. And one of the reasons why is because, especially with language learners, they've done a lot of research and a lot of researcher and have found, especially with language learners, it always thinks an AI tool wrote the essay. So that I wouldn't use any of those if you do use it. Okay, so that's something important to know. And it's a great literacy partner. We're going to see how it can be used for literacy as well. It's important to know that UNESCO came up with guidelines that all governments are now kind of guiding their policy about. I know Australia just wrote some policy and guidelines for their schools. Some of the schools in the United States. There's a lot of places around the world that are writing policy with the AI. I think even Finland and Norway. So different types of governments are looking at this and seeing what the guidelines are. So and this is a great document. It's free. You can get it. It gives you nice visuals and everything and definitions and everything. Lets you know everything about AI that I can't cover. Okay. It's recommended for 13 and above with parent consent. So if you're getting students to create with it, It is mostly recommended for 13. And one of the reasons why is because the tools, one of the ways that it learns artificial intelligence and generative, why it can generate things, is because it saves data. So there's certain tools like ChatGPT. If a student uses that, they have to agree or know that whatever they type in, that is being used. Now they're making guidelines and everything for that, but a lot of tools will store that data. When these are the tools that I recommend, we're going to see a few of them, and you can always go back to this chart to look at later. But we're going to go ahead and start with the one that's the most popular is ChatGPT. So what we have here is the prompt. So there's always like a box like this in these tools. When you're using a generative AI tool, you type instructions. And we're going to see this in a little bit, like examples of this. Give me, and it gives you examples as well, but you can do something like, give me a lesson plan on the water cycle. And it will give you a lesson plan in like a minute about the water cycle. Okay. And then whatever instructions, whatever input, that's such a simple one. So it can actually be that simple. Make up a quiz based on the water cycle. Okay. And then we're going to get just whatever. So you might do that and in like 30 seconds get this, quiz, 50 questions, something like that. And you might think, oh, that's not very good. That's, I could do much better. So the instructions, and that's what we have to teach our students and even us, you always revise those instructions to get something you want. So how might we revise that if we want a better quiz of the water cycle? Well, there are some limits we can give it. There are some parameters. And so what we call that, oh, by the way, this kind of tool, we call them large language models. So it's just another term you might hear. This is what it looks like when you do instructions. And then when you do that prompt, and this is what it will output. Here, this one is for students. This is this one will not save. So if you use, this is a form of ChatGPT, but instead it's called Byte. And this one does not save their information. So that's why it's recommended for kids or children if you do get to use AI in the classroom. And so here I said, okay, come up with a rap in the style of Eminem about the Emancipation Proclamation and freedom of slaves. And he came up with one in like less than a minute. But you notice some things that I put here. I didn't say just come up with the rap. I said in the style of Eminem. I said the topic, so you can make it like if we go back to that quiz example, you can say parameters. I need 25 questions. I want you to line it up with 3 multiple choice. Make it a multiple choice. Throw in some true and false, and then you're going to get a better quiz. So just like with any kind of writing, the more specific, the more clear you are, concise, all the best practices of writing, that is what is needed for prompts. And so we're going to see how that works. But prompt engineering is the key. That is what is important to develop the writing of your learners. And it's very, very engaging. Now there's different models. You can investigate these later. I'll just show you. There's the 5S model. There's the prep edit model. But they give you some of the same ideas. Like, for example, it's saying play a role. So in the other one, instead of just saying make a quiz, we can say I am a 5th grade language teacher of intermediate level language learners. Something like that. And then that's more specific. You can give it. So here it's in this example, it says you are a 15-year-old GSSC English student. So we're giving it the role. Okay. And then it says the question is, and it gives more examples. So the more you are explicit, if you give parameters, I need 20 questions. I need 10 multiple choice. I need 10 true and false. I need 1 essay question. The better you're going to get exactly what you want. And the same thing for students. So if they just say, write an essay about the topic of the water cycle, well, it's not going to be so great. Okay. But we don't want them to do that anyway. So let's take a look at some of these cool student tools. By the way, everything that I am showing to you is free. So I get that question a lot. I'm not paid to represent these. These are things, tools that I've used, that I've seen, that I really like, that I think are very simple to be able to use. You could use it now and learn it within 5 minutes, 5 or 10, which I love. Okay. So if you see any of these examples and you think, wow, that's pretty exciting, then this will definitely be it won't be a lot of time for you invested to learn it. Now you may spend a lot of time doing cool things and creating your projects because it's just fun, and I'm going to show you an example. So me and my daughter, for the past 2 years, or no, actually since she was 2 years old, so that's about 5 years, every night we have the same ritual. We come up with her favorite stuffed animal, which is a beluga whale, and she got that from SeaWorld here in San Antonio with my sister, and she loves this thing. So this is Beluga the whale. Yeah, you can kind of see him in front of me, right? And so Beluga the whale, he tells her a story every single night, and we make it up together. It's he flies to a magical castle that she's in. It has a dream room. It has teleportation device. It's big thing, and together we're creating, like, we're gonna put those stories that we tell nightly and make a children's book. So what we started doing is we used Ideogram, which is free tool. I love it. I think Ideogram is amazing. And so we wrote a prompt to try and come up with the best example of a beluga whale. And this is the one she chose. Now, and if you look at him, it looks very similar to our real beluga the whale. Okay, so and so that's one of the great things. And we had to revise this quite a bit, but then we can download it and then we can remix that. So when we do have the book and she's writing, then we can start building the castle. We can choose what's going to be the best image. You can see here there's 4 other beluga whale examples. We didn't like this one. That looks nothing like. So after they create a prompt, then the other part is getting them to choose, like, what is going to be the best image, and justify why. Explain your reasoning, especially, like, it could be a turn and talk, or they can write that down, but always get them to explain why they chose this certain image, because most of the generators are going to give you a choice of different types of images, and then if they don't like any of them, then they just rewrite and revise the prompt, and they're going to learn that, and they're going to understand, like, and they can use examples. I had to look at a lot of different examples of other prompts to learn how to create this one and get it to where it was close enough. Now, we really, really liked it, but we saw some others and we were like, nope, not beluga the whale. Nope, not beluga. This was actually the 3rd prompt writing to be able to get to this. And she was very excited, and I asked her details. And so we're going to see what that looks like as well, too, how to scaffold and support that kind of writing. But you can even do this with novels and books. So another one that I really like a lot is Bing Image Creator. So it uses a very advanced image creator, Dolly, which is very nice. Artists and a lot of graphic experts and those who are into graphics really use Dolly. So Bing makes it really easy. You write the prompt. So what I did here was that idea of visualizing and imagining what a scene is in a book. And so in this one, it's Romeo and Juliet. We're very familiar with it. And the student could have written, okay, I need a photograph. And when you're doing these, details matter. Okay, so when we're teaching things like setting, for example, that's something I recently taught to middle school students, then I can get them to list, okay, so what is the definition of setting? Well, it could be a location, it could be geography, it could be weather, it could be the year. And so we add those details. Okay, those are going to be part of our prompt. Instead of saying, create a scene out of Romeo and Juliet, we're going to be more specific. We're going to say, create a photograph of a 14th century house with a balcony in Verona, Italy, and a woman wearing the fashion then on the balcony. And it's saying, like, what is happening. So I want you to imagine that scene where, if you've ever seen Romeo and Juliet, and then you tell me which picture best matches that scene. So we did Romeo and Juliet. There's this picture 1, there's picture 2, there's picture 3, and picture 4. And tell me which picture you would choose and why. So 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that's what we do with our students. Okay, so we came up with together, we can even project this in the screen and we can show this together to the students and say, okay, group 1, or this student, you're have them write down, okay, the year, this, the details of the word study. And then we put that in the prompt. We come up with the prompt together. And then to tell us, explain to us, okay, which number of photograph is according to the prompt and what we read, because we're getting this out of our readings, what is going to be the best one that matches that scene? Which one would we choose and why? And then later on, they can go and they can do that themselves. But let me see if I can see anyone. You can put a number in there, but maybe you chose number. Okay, so what would be the problem with number 1? What is the problem with this picture? Now, it might be a little hard to tell, but on this picture, on the first one, okay, so maybe the man and the woman on number 2, very good. But okay, on number 1, there's 2 women. So we know, yeah, exactly. You may not be able to see it that well, so I'll explain to it, but your students, somebody can say that. They can say, well, teacher, there's 2 women. There's not even a man in there. So they learn quite quickly, AI is not perfect. It's not going to generate, even though we said a man and a woman, it still gave us a picture of 2 women. Okay, so they learn quite quickly, and you can talk about that. Okay, so that's an issue. Our AI didn't generate a picture, which is 1 woman and a man. They did 2. On the top one, it is a woman and a man. They got that right. And then on the next one, they got that right as well. But the 4th one, the same thing. It's 2 women again. So we know, okay, 2 or 3. So which is going to be better? Well, on this one, you don't see the rest of the prompt, but on it, I said the woman on the balcony and the man on the ground talking to her. Exactly. So then they evaluate between, they narrow it down, but they just were able to explain and then fix the prompt. They can also go back and they can always fix the prompt. They can say, oh, well, the reason why this one isn't well is because, and that is a big thing about writing and even discussion, explaining your reason. Why is it important? And it's very engaging when you do it with AI, because when you just ask a question and ask them to follow up, okay, explain or justify your choice, then it's very difficult for them. And sometimes they just say just because, or especially with adolescents. But when you get it and you show them a picture and you show that what they're generating isn't what they want or match, then they tend to be able, or if you go through it and you do it that way, then they're able to say, oh, well, I can see that clearly there's 2 women here, or clearly, we want a man and a woman and one is on the balcony and one isn't. So that's a great way to get students to justify, have a good discussion, but also learn about the setting and imagine that book and dive into that book to get interested in the characters. And they can imagine all characters. They can do one of just, Romeo or just Juliet. Another really cool Microsoft tool, and I have to say Microsoft has so many great learning tools. They came up with a new bunch of ones to help students, and they're made for teachers and education and language learners. They've even gotten, if you've ever heard of the immersive reading, they even have AI to help with that kind of reading, and it's just amazing. But you can explore that later. We won't talk about it. So on this one, there's Savannah, the love of my life, my joy here, and that's my partner. He's also a teacher. He's a high school teacher here. And so I did this cool thing, and I'll show who I got the idea from. But it is to make a Funko Pop doll of themselves. And so they love this. Students just love this because they love those Funko Pop dolls, right? And so I made one of Savannah, you can see, and her dad. And her dad, actually, this one is pretty perfect and right on. He even has bright blue shoes. He has the orange. I wish I could take it. And when I showed it to him, I thought he was going to be really upset, but he said, oh, that looks a lot like me. He said, but why do I look so angry? So that was the only thing that I should do. And it was Savannah, the same thing. And here we're doing that writing of descriptions. Usually I used to have students like invent a monster, an alien, and then they would write a description. What is the monster wearing? How many feet? How many arms? Are they tall? Are they short? Do they have brown hair? Blue? It's that description. And so you might say, well, how do I get beginners, or how do I get intermediates, or how do I differentiate that or support them? So the same thing that works for a lot of different learners: sentence stems, starter frames, exemplars, fill in the blank, graphic organizers, dictionaries, visuals, word, phrase banks, and lists are all going to help them. So teach that. Use those same supports, that same vocabulary list, except instead they're making a physical doll of themselves that's being generated by AI. And they'll keep writing. And actually, with my nephew, and here, this was the prompt that I actually copied. I made this a little bit different. So you can actually go to that, use that Microsoft site, and you can actually give them this kind of prompt that you already had for them. So I actually copied this prompt from Stephen Reed. He's the one who made a one of himself, and he was nice enough to share like a link of the prompt. And then I went back and I edited it. But it's like a fill in the blank. So it's good to support students. What do they choose here? They choose male or female. Smiling. So I had to take that. I actually made that as something they could change as well. Their emotion. What's the name and how they spelled their name. Wearing and then their t-shirt, the different types of articles of clothing. And then over here it says some of the things so the box can come out correctly. And you can make a whole bunch, a cartoon, and I mean, there's just so many things you can do. But I thought the Funko Pop was just super cool. So, and that's been a very popular one as well. And so a student can go, you can send them, already prompt what they fill in the blank, and then it makes it a lot easier for those who need that, who are just learning and things like that. Or we can even create a chart, and in the chart they fill out, they can do it with partners. So that's one thing they can do, where they can have, partners work together. They make a Funko Pop of each other, observing each other. They can interview each other. Okay, what kind of shirt do you want to wear? What kind of shoes you want to wear? What color? Do you want yellow hair, red? Do you want to wear a hat? Do you want to, they can do that. Or they could do a character in a book. They can do themselves. Or one of the ones, students love is who has the best Funko Pop version of the teacher today. Okay, and they all get together and try to make the best, and they write their prompts, and try to get my outfit right, my hair right, and everything like that. And then we choose. Okay, the whole class can vote on it unanimously, and then it's they really like that a lot. So it can also enhance their creative writing, especially like with poetry and things like that. So there's a very famous popular artist named Lupe Fiasco. And if you've heard of Lupe Fiasco, he created this AI tool with Google. It's so amazing, called TextFX. He explains, and so basically students are walked through creating acronyms, alliteration, fuse, and all of these, simile, all of that. So it really gets students into like wanting to create poems and stuff, because he uses this for songs and writing and things like that. And he even says that. So he actually did made it for rappers, writers, but it's so amazing. He makes these little videos and really shows how to use it. So I'm going to show, instead of me showing you, I'm going to show you his video, and you can see how you can just present that to students. Might be a little laggy, but when it might be a little laggy, just letting you know that. I'm gonna play it again here.
So the next tool is POV, really nice. POV evaluates the topic from different points of view. So it's giving you different perspectives about a topic or a subject. There's a topic space here. So we'll type in karate school. Click run. It's doing this work. Hit view all to kind of see the rest of our possibilities. Let's pin a couple. We got karate is a great way to learn self-defense. Great way to get a black belt. I agree, as a black belt. And let's do this one, number 3. Karate school is the best place to meet your future spouse. So we'll do that. So that's POV.
So they can use something like TextFX And they can choose one of those. You can have them use alliteration, and it could be that they still make an alliteration poem and everything like that. But he walks them through examples, and they can use this to learn how to use in different examples they can see and real world examples and things like that. So that's really cool and nice. Another one for older learners like high school and then also for college is Debate AI. This one will really walk them through argumentative essays and writing them and making a good argument. So you put the topic, and so instead of getting them to write an argumentative essay, have them, they can use a tool like this where it walks them through their argument. It asks them, what is the logic behind it? It lets them choose famous people they can argue against, they can debate against. They can debate against, Taylor Smith. I mean, Taylor Swift about, writing music or country versus rap. I mean, they can choose something. They could do big politicians. They could do Einstein and, debate about science. They can choose someone. And then it acts like that. It plays that role, the AI, and he puts topics. You can choose a topic. You can let them still choose their topics. And then they can write down or type for you, what the argument they walk through, or they can even send you screenshots, so they're going through the process of writing that, and then they can use that, what they wrote, and they can put that and produce that in either a presentation. They could do it for a mock debate, or they can even do it where they write the essay, and the essay is based on what they got from this debate AI. So those are ways that you can get students to not just write something like, hey, we're going to go to chat GPT or something like that, and we're going to write an argumentative essay. It's going to be on this topic. But instead, they're all choosing a different topic, and then they're walking through the argument here. They can even reflect and go back, and that's the most important part. So when we're talking about, so I was showing you some examples, but I want to show you the nitty gritty and best practices with that. So with AI, whatever tool they use that's generative, you do have to worry about privacy and security. So these are the tools that they think are best that work with that. They don't really save data. They're made for education, students, things like that. Inaccurate information, those hallucinations that we talked about earlier. And yeah, it'll make up sources. It'll tell you things that it just really doesn't know. It has been updated, so the later versions that use the most recent, updated versions will have more accurate information. But it's great because then you can tell students, this gives students a really good reason to do something which we always tell them, which they hardly ever do, which is check your sources. Go back, make sure that, this is correct. Like, this is really, if it gave you an essay, or, if it gave you a reference, find that reference. Can you find it on the internet? Read that reference and see if it matches what was given to you. So investigating that inaccurate information is one step that actually improves the writing and the research writing as well. Bias and discrimination. So especially with the images, sometimes in different cultures they have done, many different artists have, and illustrators have put in parameters like make dogs and have them in the style of this culture and that culture, and he was very, very biased, and sometimes, a lot of times, it didn't get it right. So there have been studies about that as well. Copyright issues, all of the data, it doesn't reference. The great thing about Grammarly is Grammarly has really tried to make it to where your students can just copy something, and then it says this information was generated with Grammarly, or Grammarly got it from this. So that a lot of the tools are starting to do that now, which is really nice. So and your students can be more transparent. They can say, hey, where you can say, hey, I will allow you to use AI for this. Oh, that means we got to wrap up soon, but I'll let you use it for this, but I'm not going to let you use it for that. And that's very specific. And I need you to be transparent. I need you to basically tell me when you use AI, and I'll show you what that looks like. So another tip is collaborate at the beginning. If you decide to use AI, come up with an AI code of conduct. You can copy and paste this one. A university instructor, Dr. Angeli, that I also follow on LinkedIn. she came up with this Canva. You can copy it, and then you can adjust it as you need it, and your student can sign this acceptable use saying that they agree to this. They agree to be original, check the facts, give credit, do their part, keep personal stuff private, and they agree to verify the information. And once you go through that and the discussion of that, also at every single time they use the AI tool, it's important to have a reflective piece and feedback. That's going to make sure that they're using it in the right ways, responsibly. And when they use it on their own to start creating in their jobs and their fields, because we already learn with screenwriting, actors, they're already experiencing how AI is like really impacting their in their fields and in just everywhere. There's a lot of writers recently, publishers that cut down. And the reason they cut down is because they're using more AI to do things like come up with scripts instead of hiring someone. And so it's good to start teaching students, why the ethical use, for them to develop a code of conduct within themselves for when they use this tool in the future. And so it goes something like this, and you can always copy and paste this. I can make a Google Doc of it, anything like that. But it's them first. They have to jot down their initial prompts. What instructions did they write to produce what they got? Write down your revised prompts using some kind of model if you use a model. List contributions the AI made. Okay, what did the AI do? What did you do? Yeah, in Canvas where it's available. How did you tweak the AI contribution to make sure your voice was included and met your needs? I always say tweak, tweak, tweak. That's super important. What facts were presented by AI? List all the facts, list the websites. What percentage of this project was completed? And so that's just a general idea of a way that you can get students to reflect and how they're using it. Now for teachers, I didn't talk about that. I'm going to wrap up really quick in a little bit so you'll have time for some questions as well. But it can really save you time. There's a lot of information on how it saves you time. I'm going to show you one example. If you ever need help with prompts or anything, here's a prompt made for teachers on how to do everything from design a syllabus, to get a lesson, to make a quiz, to have questions that are based on Bloom's taxonomy, just everything. How to differentiate, how to write IEP, just all kinds of things. Those are teacher tools that I recommend. And then I'm going to show you this one. So if you want a great, easy way to write a lesson plan, Schemely.app is really awesome. It will give you a Kahoot quiz with your lesson. It will give you a really good video. I've evaluated that with teachers and stuff. It'll give you like questions, vocabulary lists. So let's go back to that water cycle example and water cycle for language learners. That's all I wrote. I could have done much better. I could have chose a grade level. I could have chose what language level, all of these things. But in like minutes, this is what it generated. Oh, it also does Quizlet flashcards for you. It puts a visual. It has, like I said, a video, a Kahoot quiz, and then it gives you the learning objectives, the key vocabulary, content summary, and an idea of activities. It could get longer if you want. It just gives you all these things. That was generated in like less than 5 minutes. And that's all I wrote. So some of the things that it has here is it says diagram analysis. That's awesome. That's a really good practice. It's because Schemely was created by teachers. It was an AI tool created by teachers for teachers. There's also another tool called Diffit that will also help you to take a text and then make it for different levels. So that's another tool worth mentioning. And then finally, why is it so important to use AI? Well, just like I was talking about all the technology and tools that have come and disrupted the classroom and disrupted learning and education, students are going to use it. And when they use it, they do things that they don't realize is harmful. Like, for example, there's a Rihanna and Drake song that was made, and it was a fake. It was a fake, and those artists got upset. And those are some things that we can, discuss. They can review articles about, AI making artists upset and why, and figure out why it's, even though it's fun, even though it became a top #1 song and everything like that, why is it, painful or harmful for the artists involved? Are more artists going to keep creating if they think AI is just going to steal their stuff, or actors, if their image and they can be just used on film whenever they want. And these are some deep things you can explore with them about developing their own code of conduct when using AI. So I always think like great teachers like you that come in and they want to learn more and they want to see best practice about using a new tool or technology, are the ones that really help empower our students. So when they're out in the world and they're using this, they had some guidance, they had that reflection. Together, you came up with a way of monitoring and developing, this is what can be really powerful about this tool, how we can use AI to make ourselves better and be able to free our time up to spend with families and stuff. But also, this will happen in the impact if we use it in a way that's not responsible. There was actually a research and it said the role of teachers in the face of AI. And this is just one of like 100 things it said. But a lot of times we get scared like, oh, robots are going to replace teachers. There's going to be technology that replaces teacher. And in some instances, yeah, we've seen some of those strange things, but that's not been the most, that hasn't been like a great fear that's been realized. And one of the most important things, we even saw that with the pandemic, students love a teacher, a physical teacher, or a teacher. And why? Because the human connection, cultural sensitivity, developing resilience and perseverance, that teachers build trust and rapport. They're there for the student, you're their champion. And that's something that no tool or technology is ever going to replace. And so I really love this research because it shows so many examples. It makes you realize like your role is so vital and important. Instead of, us being fearful of the technology, it's really important that we get our students to be able to be guided to use it in a very responsible way. So that way they can be more powerful. They can really focus on their strengths and weaknesses. They can improve their writing and they can have this for life, this skill for life. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up and answer some questions. You can always follow me on social media. I always put the most updated things of AI. So thank you so much. If you have any questions about any of the activities or you want some more guidance towards like different other activities for certain levels, I can do that as well and answer some questions. But thank you so much for coming. And those are ways that you can follow me. And I hope your plate isn't too full and you're not too overwhelmed there. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. I'm glad it wasn't too overwhelming.